I think we're at a time where symbolism is through and action is required. We don't need symbolic acts. We need action that will bring home all of our troops by early next year, starting now. This kind of symbolism, this kind of blowing with the wind just represents a different stage of Mr. Coleman's shifting with the wind all of the time. We do need to withdraw in a way which is more disciplined and more thoughtful than the clumsy and misleading and false ways in which we got into this war. We do have vital security, national security interests there. We do need to take heed of the terrorism that's going on, because there are people there that are interested in destroying the way of life of a democracy. And I believe that we need to be strong, but at the same time we need to be a very humble co-partner. We need to bring together all of the adversaries in that region, whether it's Egypt and Syria and Iran and Turkey, all of them into an international conference, and make certain that we get out of Iran, we get out of Iraq immediately, as soon as we can, without destroying our vital national interests. We need to make sure as well that the troops that come back who have served us so valiantly, the men and women, 65% of whom have major injuries and mental issues to deal with, are taken care of in a way better than they have been taken care of by the VA hospitals such as Walter Reed in the past. So I believe that this symbolism is simply a bunch of malarkey. It's a way of continuing a surge that, in the GAO's words today, is actually dysfunctional. The political success there is none. And we have a dysfunctional situation from which we must withdraw in order to get our priorities straight on education and energy and environment now.
Two things struck me about that article. The first was the term symbolic withdrawal, which means we could be there for centuries. So let's be clear about that. Second, he framed it as this is where we're fighting Al-Qaeda. Now, we have to get ready for this one, because Al-Qaeda is not the major factor in Iraq. Al-Qaeda was no factor in Iraq until we invaded, but it is now not the major factor. The other thing I thought of is the British Broadcasting Corporation did a survey about a week ago that showed that 21% of Iraqis think the U.S. military presence is helping, and 69% say they want the troops out. I would say it's time to get the troops out. I would also say the reason that the troops are still there gets back to the point I made in my 7 minutes. The United States invaded Iraq to put permanent military bases to take control of Iraqi oil. Those are the two agendas that we have not completed yet. That's the real agenda. Once we take that real agenda off the table, then we can see that we actually can get out and need to get out. One last thing. The United Nations official last week said it's possible to have reconciliation in Iraq. It's possible that the United Nations can play a positive role in neighboring countries as well, but it can't happen until the U.S. ends the occupation. It can't happen until the U.S. ends the occupation.
Thank you, Mr. Schweizer.
Well, you know, Norm Coleman has been all over the map. He's been moving toward the center as the election gets closer. In fact, today he also called for a surge in diplomacy in that article. I thought he had read my website. We need to, number one, revoke the resolution that gave the president the authority to go to war in the first place. Number two, we need to have a surge in diplomacy, which I've been calling for a long time, because the Middle East is a troubled area. It's more destabilized because of this war. The world is at greater risk because of this war. And we should have a United Nations Security Council form a peace conference in the Middle East with all powers in the Middle East and start talking about peace. It's a long, difficult, arduous road, but we have to start down that road. We should immediately start redeploying our troops to train these folks in Iraq. I don't understand why it takes so long to train the Iraqis. Our folks get trained in 6 months. Okay? We said start training. Go after terrorists where they exist or are a minority, as Jack has pointed out, about 5,000 to 50,000 insurgents. And our redeployment should be calibrated to the benchmarks. I've got the report card here, it's in the New York Times. 3 of 18. Bush is flunked. Okay? There was no child left behind. He was a child left behind. So we need a new direction in Iraq. And I think some of us differ on this. I think Al and I differ on this war, and I think those differences should be plumbed. Where we were at the outset and where we were in redeployment. I think it's very, very important to ask those questions because that gets to how we make decisions and how we will make decisions as a United States Senator. What questions we will ask and where we'll go with the answers that we get. I think that's very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you all. The next question will start with Mr. Frank, please proceed.
I understand that. Coleman's remarks were incomprehensible. He said that we don't want to give Maliki a blank check, but that we're going to be in Iraq for a long time. That sounds like a blank check to me. I am for starting to leave now. I am for getting out in a way that involves more planning and more thought than how we went in. I have been speaking out against this war for years. And I've been taking on not just President Bush, but Norm Coleman. Norm Coleman has been a cheerleader for this war, and I'm going to hold him accountable. He also had the #1 oversight position in the Senate as chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. As that chairman, he had sole subpoena power, and yet did not do one hearing on the reconstruction, and that was his job. It's a disgrace. When Jack Murtha said in May of 2004 that we weren't properly armoring our troops, Norm Coleman said he was undermining the morale of the troops. I've been to Iraq 4 times. I can't agree more on how we treat our vets coming back. I have an emotional stake in that. We got to give these guys, when they come back, the best medical treatment. And sometimes the Republicans say I'm mad. Well, when you look at something that happened to Jonathan Schultz, when you look at what happened to Walter Reed, my response to them is, what does it take to make you mad?